crypto looked very, very similar to Web2 today. For the first time in a very long time, the big guys are not in this yet.
A game is making it fun, so why not do that for crypto?
I want to make sure that I add some kind of value, and finance just ain't it. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer.
Crypto loves to just invent words every 5 seconds.
It was almost like the dawn of the internet. I don't think gamification should be the end goal. You shouldn't dumb it down, make it bite-sized. Games are great at doing that.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Next Billion podcast, where we're talking to the builders, the entrepreneurs, the innovators, the people that are onboarding the next billion people to crypto. And today we have a great friend of mine, actually. We have Moo with us today from Player2 World. And we're going to talk a little bit about gamification of crypto and what we can expect going forward in 2023. But Moo, look, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast today.
Pleasure is mine, George. It's been a while. I'm glad to be on here.
Absolutely. Actually, I don't think we've spoken too much about gamification in crypto yet on the podcast. So I really want to get into that because I think it's an area which is kind of untapped, and everyone in crypto probably also has been a gamer at some stage, or at least understands the mechanics of that. So to begin, let's get into a little bit about your crypto journey. How did you get into crypto? How did you find yourself in this current position that you're in with Player2 World? And yeah, what's the journey thus far?
Yeah, so my background's in finance a long time ago, and made a lot of money there. That was where I really learned the good, the bad, and the ugly. And at some point, really just got, midlife crisis, call it whatever you want, and couldn't continue any further. So I left at my peak. I used to run a hedge fund and told myself that, I want to do good in the world. I want to make sure that I add some kind of value, and finance just ain't it. Just moving around numbers, making the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, and it wasn't a good feeling. So then I began my journey in startups and eventually stumbled upon this magical thing called crypto. And I was like, wait a second, like for the first time in a very long time or ever, the big guys are not in this yet. It's the little guys in this first. So the big guys for the first time could possibly be exit liquidity. I mean, if we don't mess it up, it becomes a legit product, then yeah. So I dug really deep into it. A lot of my really smart friends were in it, and I was like, if everyone smart's in this, then there should be something here, right? So that's really how I got started. And because of my background in finance, I started out in crypto by really wanting to help people understand what exactly trading is all about. All these coins are pretty much the same as, stocks or akin to it, how not to FOMO, how not to buy bubbles. And
are we talking like 2017, 18?
No, I wasn't fortunate enough to get in so early. So I think late 2020, that was my entry point. So just before the recent bull run, crypto kind of really hit mainstream. I think before that, 2017, it was still mainly tech guys, but I think 2021 was where like the governments, institutionals, like they all started becoming a bit more interested. So yeah, my journey in crypto started out as mainly an education thing. I started a little Telegram group, invited friends. I posted like articles about new developments, and yeah, never looked back. So after a bunch of different trading and teaching, I really felt like it was almost like the dawn of the internet to some degree. I guess that both of us were not old enough to be in the early days where we could build a company back in the .com era. I was trading stocks, but nowhere mature enough to actually run a company. And I thought, it'll be a shame if I passed up this opportunity. So I began thinking, what can I do to be part of this ecosystem in a more meaningful way? So not just trading, but actually contributing and building. So that's where I guess the very early thoughts and ideas about what Player2 is today, it began there.
This is so important, and I'm so happy to hear that it's coming from the right place as well, because for everyone out there in crypto, or maybe looking at projects or trying to evaluate people and these sorts of things, I think very important is, where are you coming from and why are you trying to solve the problems that you're solving? And certainly for me, crypto has always been about the philosophy behind it, and we need private money for the world, and we need a financial system that's equal opportunity for everyone everywhere. No matter if I'm in Namibia or I'm sitting in Istanbul or Hong Kong or London or something like that, I think that's a very important thing for the world. So I guess that the focus that you had from coming from the financial world and going, okay, actually, I think I need to do something else. I need to change it up.
Yep.
That's quite heartening to see. I think that's definitely coming from the right place.
Yeah, motivation is important, right? Because that really is what drives people.
Yeah. And also, that's what makes you stick around as well. whether it's a bull market or a bear market, you're not in it to make a quick buck. You're in it to solve a real problem in the world. You actually don't care about number go up or number go down day to day. It's not really important because that's not the goal. The goal is to, solve X problem.
Yep.
And the number going up or down is more just sort of like a customer acquisition thing that helps inflows or outflows at certain times. But yeah.
I mean, it's still important, because you're running a business, you need to make sure that people, you can pay the bills. But I think other than the basic amount, you're absolutely right. If you're in it for the reasons of changing the world, then all these numbers outside of paying the bills shouldn't really matter because you understand that it takes time, right? Like nothing is going to magically appear at 100% from day one. You have to put in effort to take time to build things out. And more than just crypto, this is just a general thing for entrepreneurs and startups. You can't build a magical company that prints billions overnight. You need to really put in the hours. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, so you've come at crypto for the right reasons and you sort of stumble into maybe gamification as something which you think is an area to focus on. Why was that? And what was the impetus from the Telegram group sort of getting set up? And then you had an epiphany one day and you're like, man, I need to take this to the next level.
Yeah, lots of great things in there to unpack. I would say that I was a big avid gamer for the longest time. So I played lots of video games. So it was pretty natural for me to kind of pivot in here. But what I was trying to solve really, it's still education actually. And why we pivoted to gamification. So it's different from gaming, right? So gamification and gaming are two very different things.
Which is something I didn't really quite understand until we just spoke briefly before. But please,
Yes.
If you can elucidate that point, that would be great.
I will be happy to do so. So gaming is really just people having a good time playing something they enjoy, right? Could be strategy like what I used to play, StarCraft, Command and Conquer, all the good stuff. It could be first-person shooters. It could be whatever you want, right? Dota. And those are really games. Like you're in this to compete as a professional gamer or just have fun, pass the time, and that's what gaming is. Now, gamification, however, is what we do in Player2, and that's really having something look like a game, but it's not actually a game. So the UI for Player2 looks like a game UI, but there's no actual game per se. So yeah, that's the distinguishing factor between gamification and gaming. So for me, we move into gamification as a UI or user interface because I always admired how games were able to teach players really complex things. Like, as you can imagine with any game, there's a lot of moving parts, right? But how do you dissect all these bits of information to something palatable and fun for the player, right? So they do it with little blurbs. You have these conversations and dialogues with a wizard or what have you may. If you hover over your sword, there's like a little description on what your stats are or what it can do, right? If you meet someone on the road, they tell you more information. Some glowing wand appears, to click it and poof, like something else. It's like the way they feed information is really interesting because ultimately you are teaching the user how to play your game, right? And I thought, what's better than educating people? It's educating people in a fun way where they can enjoy it. So that's really why we picked gamification as a means to really teaching people. So we still hold the same, or at least I still hold the same candle from day one there. I really want people to learn. But right now we want to have people learn in a fun way.
That's a good point. Actually, when you're playing a game, you are learning.
A lot.
I've done that many times, right? And it's something that's inbuilt into how people build games is they actually set out that, there's like the tutorial level, right?
Yep.
And you learn the tutorial and then afterwards you're out into the world or something like that, or you start at level 1 and then you get to, it's not until level 20 or something that you're doing well. So actually this learning concept is inbuilt into games. And if you're trying to teach something, you're kind of just following the same steps that a game is,
Exactly.
but a game is making it fun.
Exactly.
So why not do that for crypto?
Exactly. It's a great way to learn.
Absolutely. So what is Player2 World? You mentioned before that it's more of a UI for gamifying interactions in the crypto world. Did I get that correct? Or what is it? What can people do? How do they get involved? Is it a game? Is it not a game? Why is it not?
So the tagline I gave you earlier was Player2 allows you to discover Solana through a gamified world. So visually, since I don't have any graphics in front of me, visually you can think of it as Pokemon. So your old school Pokemon, pixel art, grayscale, it's the same for Player2. So visually, it looks exactly like that. The main difference is that your buildings in Pokemon in Player 2 are different projects, right? So Step could have its own building in there. Radium could have another. Solana Monkey Business, one more building. And you could go into building. There'll be characters in there, NPCs, and you can interact with them. So they can tell you different things. Hey, this project is about XYZ. Check it out. Like click on here. This is how you can deposit USDC or SOL or whatever you may have. So it basically is like a Pokemon world, but instead of just having buildings that are, Professor Oak's like house or a gym, it's an actual project in Solana. So the big idea for Player 2 is really solving discoverability. I think they're really bad at it, unfortunately. And not just the Solana thing, but just crypto in general, Web3 in general. We don't really know what's going on in different parts of our own little cocoon. And the only way people seem to be finding out about stuff is through influencers, right? So be it Twitter shillers or YouTube shillers. I think those have gone down massively since the bear market, but probably come back again. And
they always come back, unfortunately.
They always come back when they smell the money. But yeah, so, we don't really have a good way to discover things in the ecosystem, be it Solana or Ethereum or anywhere else. And we want to try to solve that because there's really a lot of cool things going on and we want to bring this to people's attention. So ideally, at the end of the day, if we achieve what we set out to do, Player 2 would basically be a place where you can discover all of Solana, all the different projects, you can interact with them, or at least get a very high level overview of what they are. And within our world, you can either have a very simple UI to do very simple things that a project can allow you to do, or it could be like a hot link where it brings you to the actual project page and they can continue with the experience there. So we want to make it as flexible as possible.
Yeah. And, a lot of people always say that classic comment is, oh, crypto is hard to use or DeFi is hard to use. What are they actually saying with that? Like they're talking about a UX problem in some ways. They're talking about concepts like crypto loves to just invent words every 5 seconds for something. Like they're talking about, oh, this is a mogongle gonk and you put it in the fleme. Like, okay, cool. I don't know what that is, but crypto loves inventing words. So I guess the problem to solve there is the accessibility for people. So is gamification perhaps the way that a lot of projects should think of for customer acquisition? Because let's say I'm someone like, I don't know, Radium or Step ourselves or something like that. And like, if we're not the best at a UI or we don't have the resources and time, maybe we should be thinking more about partnering with projects like Player2 World and just being like, okay, this is the way that we onboard people into crypto. Is that sort of what you guys are going for? Or how does sort of partnerships with other projects work? Or are you just sort of finding cool contracts out there to implement into the game?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we're trying to do a couple of different things, but I'll speak to, I guess, solving onboarding and all these jargons that people come up with all the time. So it stems back to a similar problem, right? So I spoke about discoverability as an issue, but the bigger underlying issue behind discoverability is the lack of a agreed upon knowledge base, if you may, right? A wiki of sorts that everyone goes, all right, we're happy to like dump all of man's information of Web3 in here, and we can agree that this is the term to use and stop inventing new terms because it's already been used to describe this particular thing. So that's a bigger problem to solve, and we can have a conversation about that separately. But yeah, so if we can fix that base layer of here's everything you need to know or you want to know about Web3 or what we know till date, that would align things a lot more easily. So once that happens, then we can do the gamification process of onboarding users because people will be all aligned to the same terms, understand exactly what you're talking about, and we can start teaching people. And it won't be for naught because, as you mentioned, no one's going to create something new 5 seconds later because we already have the terminologies sort of like locked in place for now, right? So yeah, once you have the base layer solved, then onboarding people should be a very natural next step. And I think people will have a better time in a gamified learning sense than reading just white papers and docs all day long.
Is it that easy though? Because I mean, ultimately, hard things are hard.
Yeah.
So with especially these financial products where it's like, oh, we have a collateralized call option vault that is then staked in a CLMM pool that then you can take a perp on or something like that.
Yep.
It's like, how do you actually make that easy to understand / do you try or do you not? Or do you just stick to things which are perhaps more digestible? Or I don't know, like how do you bridge the gap of hard things being hard and then trying? Because often I see people saying, oh, this is too hard. And to understand it, you need to dumb it down. But to dumb it down, you lose nuance.
Exactly.
And if I don't understand that this thing is like mega risky and I just call it like I have a picture of a fluffy pony and then a staking button.
You get wrecked.
Like, I actually don't know that this thing is like this whole complicated, horrible thing underneath.
Yeah, you get
so
wrecked.
you probably don't want to do that, right?
Exactly. So you don't want to dumb it down. I think that's the wrong way to go about it. You shouldn't dumb it down. In fact, I'm a big believer of education, and in education, we want people to learn rather than people to be ignorant and dumbing it down, right? So the right way to go, or at least I think the right way to go, is to make it bite-sized, as you pointed out earlier. And games are great at doing that. So that's the page you want to take from games. Keep it bite-sized, where you teach people really just baby steps along the way and make it fun. And if you look at, like many games out there, they're hyper complex. Like, I don't know, World of Warcraft, there's like a gajillion spells in there and each of them do different things. And they're like mages and tanks and whatever you have in there. And people understand it. Like, the fact is people actually they understand it to like a high degree of fidelity, right? So I think we can do the same thing for crypto. You just have to make it fun and digestible.
And I guess the segue is, tell us about Sophie. Is she someone that can help us make this all digestible? Or what was the impetus behind that? And maybe just sort of lay the land of people looking for information and how they search for it currently. And is a chatbot or an AI perhaps the way to do that?
So I honestly don't know how people search for information because it's really hard to come by. For me, I hear about new things on Twitter. That's my main source of news, I guess.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like, there's no other good one. Twitter search is just horrible. Like, it's just bad. And then the other way, I guess, is for the devs. You have your Solana docs. You have some tutorials. You have some developer DAOs that are trying their best to make it more bite-sized. But by and large, it's still not great. It can be a lot better. So what Sophie is Sophie is our attempt at trying to help with onboarding to Solana and to projects in general. And Sophie is really just an AI chatbot that can help answer questions really, really quickly and accurately. So if you're a new user, on Solana, if you attempt to join the Solana Discord, not to the Discord right now, but you really can't do much. You can't ask any questions. There's no general chat. And if you wizard your way through finding a place where you can chat in the Solana Discord, it's usually highly, highly moderated. You get banned very quickly if you ask the wrong things in there. So it's not great, right? If I'm a new user, I'm trying to find out stuff and ask questions. I tend to go to the official source. And if that doesn't give me any answers, then I either get frustrated and leave, or I start looking at, other things that may or may not be as high quality, right? So Sophie aims to solve that problem. So hopefully we get her into the main Solana Discord. But simultaneously, we want her to be in many, many other Discords, because people come in various ways and formats, right? Someone could come in, just from hearing about Solana, going through Solana.com, or they could come in via Solana Monkey Business because they heard that, good things are happening, some hype, whatever it may be, right? OK Bears, when they first started, like, people were coming in hot, like from ETH and other chains, and that would be the first touch point. So we wanted like Sophie to be like an OK Bear server, Solana Monkey Business server, and the Radium server, wherever that people may enter. That's the big idea, the bigger goal. But once that happens, then I think we really can help educate people from there, because Sophie will be pretty much answering whatever questions you have, or at least 99% of the questions. I can't say everything, but the idea is 99% of the questions she can help with, and that should at least get you much further along than browsing through Twitter.
Yeah, it's more of a onboarding sort of mechanism to help people smooth through that education process. Because I certainly, like, whenever you play a new game, I remember back in the day playing things like you mentioned, World of Warcraft, there would be guides, there would be websites dedicated to it, there would be videos, there would be all these sorts of things. So it's kind of like, you don't want to take people out of band to some other place to go and do something, because then you lose their attention, and also they go off and do something else, or they're not interested in your thing anymore. So yeah, I think it's important to have that capacity for people to explore and find information in game, perhaps via a chatbot. So I guess this brings us to the question of the gamification in crypto. I've got here in my notes, is it needed? And I guess what I'm trying to say there is, what's the end game here? Is it that all of these different gamification things turn crypto into this into just a giant game of flashing lights and explosions and, hey, I made money here, I made money there. Like, is that where we're going? Or I don't know, like, what do you see as the end game for gamification in general? Like, does that make the world a better place? If crypto is full of all of these financial sort of things, does it make the world a better place?
It's an interesting question, and I think there are different layers to it. So I don't think gamification should be the end goal. Gamification is more of a way in which we can help people with different problems, right? So one of the problems is education. Another problem is discoverability, right? So in the Player2 world, because you can walk around and you can look at different projects, like how you would in Pokemon, you can find the different cool things there. But ultimately, you reach a point of some degree of maturity, and people of different caliber, they'll come in and go, hey, like, yeah, cool, your little bite-sized education snippets are fun, but I want to read like a proper white paper. I want to see the research behind these things, or I would like to see massive amounts of data to understand if your DeFi protocol is saying what it's doing, right? I want to actually verify things. So I think ultimately you'll have a lot of different formats, like how you do it in the real world. But I think gamification as a means to, helping the masses should still be around for the most part. And separately, on the topic of games and not gamification, I think that's also important, because a lot of people are big gamers, especially people in our generation and the generation to come. They grew up playing games, they enjoy it, right? So not everyone is going to be in this for, like generational wealth. Some people just want to have fun, and that's where games come in. At the end of the day, I think crypto or Web3 will look very, very similar to what we have in Web2 today. It's just that instead of logging in through emails and password, I now have this unified login mechanism called a wallet, and that allows me to build my profile wherever I go, a pseudonymous way, and I think that's a really cool or much better system than what we have with emails and passwords today.
I always say that is literally the best thing about Web3 is I have one login button for everything. My world is so horrible with, I'm pretty sure, 800 passwords and unique usernames that I have. Insane, right? So just having one button that just works everywhere, and I sign up for a new thing. It's literally, I just click this, and you bring that along with you on the journey, and you custody that information and blah, blah, blah. So makes sense. And I guess as well to what you're saying, like there's always going to be power users, and those power users are the ones which might seek out the white paper of the DeFi protocol and that sort of thing. We see that in games. There's always a small percentage of people that do that. So I think it's about providing a way for the large mass of people to have fun and engage and learn, and provide the ability for those power users to still go and research things behind the scenes anyway. So I guess as well, 2023, I think last time we met, the world was a different place. And then everything, it just exploded, and FTX blew up, and Sam went to jail and then didn't go to jail, and then nobody knows right now, and then things are sort of in the doldrums at the moment. So 2023, what do you think is going to be happening this year? What are you excited about? And particularly maybe for the Solana ecosystem as well, what do you think are some of the major predictions that you have there going forward for this year?
Great question. And yeah, what a crazy world we live in. It's only been a couple of months, and oh my God, it's night and day.
Feels like a couple of years.
I know, right? I still remember vividly like celebrating during the Breakpoint event on how like the SOL price was pumping, it's going through the moon. Oh, Google's coming on as a new like partner, and then it was just spiked. I literally bought that local top at $38. It was so high that I don't even think the candle has that $38. It was like the wick, the tiny part of the wick. So I have that accomplishment there, buying the absolute local top. So you're welcome, whoever used to.
Don't worry, sir. We're gonna go back there. It's all good.
But I think 2022 was an interesting one for Solana because it still had a lot of problems, right? Just being honest, like the chain had issues with, stability. We were still in the era where Radium had accelerators and people were botting all these IDOs, and then came all these frenzies with the mint, and the chain couldn't, handle all the crazy traffic and the bots and stuff. And Tolly and gang, they had really cool ideas, but it took time, right, for those ideas to get rolled out and developed. So things like your local fee markets, that really helped go a long way to making Solana what it is today, right? So the last time, touch wood, anything happened to the chain was a very long time ago, and I think it's been humming along very nicely. So we saw a lot of cool things in the pipeline, and I think they're finally coming to pass. So one of it is the Saga phone. I think that's highly important because, you're only as strong as your weakest link, right? And I think the weakest link by far has always been security on a hardware level. So once you fix that to Saga phone, then you can do some really cool stuff with that. But what it also does is that it unlocks payments. So payments has been largely linked to your laptop or your desktop so far, and you're not going to go bring that around and pay for stuff, as supermarket. But with your phone, you can, right? So that really finally brings the use case of crypto, which is supposed to be money, to an actual convenient format. So I'm looking forward to the phone and what SMS can do. And personally, I think that we might see a bit more downside coming. The Fed's been very adamant on wanting to induce a recession, and I don't know if we're in really a recession yet. We're seeing signs of it, but I don't think it's a full-blown recession. So probably a little bit more pain to come. But after the pain, hopefully comes a rainbow. And I think 2023 will be a year where we bottom out, probably. So whether it's in the middle of the year or, a little bit closer to the end of the year, I think we will bottom out. So I'm looking forward to welcoming back the bull.
Well said. Yeah, look, I think there's a lot of things to look forward to. The points you made about the chain as well, I think is a good one, is it's humming along really nicely now.
Yep.
And I think some of the problems that we experienced, which by the way, these were problems with scale.
Yep.
There's just tons of people and people like trying to do mints, and there's lots of bots using it. And on the one hand, it is a good problem to have. On the other hand, it's also a problem that was had. So yeah, but I think things are in a much better position now. So for anyone out there that wants to know about what you guys are doing at Player2 World, where should they go? Twitter, websites, blogs? Maybe they want to go and meet Sophie and ask her some existential questions. Where should they go?
So if you want to look for us, the main way we communicate with our community is in our Discord. So if you have Discord, hop over discord.gg/player2. If you want to look for us on Twitter, our handle is Player2 World, and our website is player2.world. So those are the 3 best channels you can find us.
And everyone go and follow P2 Moo on Twitter as well.
Thank you.
He's legendary. So awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and enlightening us about the gamification of crypto. And definitely anyone out there, go and check out Player2 World. It's really awesome. I was also playing with it as well just before, and I've been watching the journey over the last few months, and it's been amazing. So definitely go and check it out. But thank you so much for being on the podcast today, Moo, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you for having me, George. You have a good day.
Absolutely. See ya.